Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to get into a conversation from the audience. This is a comment that somebody dropped talking about SPS, DEC, why it might make sense to hold DEC even as the airdrop is only 12 days from ending. And strong opinions in the chat. So I'm going to get into it and I'm going to unpack what they're saying and contribute my feelings and opinions on the matter. And yeah, this video will be about, does it make sense to hold DEC after the SPS airdrop or not? Let's get into it. So Hilo Bafro said, and this is 3 weeks ago. So we're gonna have to unpack what that would mean because I think the date of this comment is relevant in the context of the question. But let's read the comment. Hi Dwayne, let me give you the reasons why I want to hold on to my DEC even after the SPS airdrop ends. First of all, there are only 5.7 billion DEC in existence for the market cap of 4 million USD. This represents the entire liquidity of the game so far. So the 4 million figure seems incredibly low. I legitimately think it is worth more than its current value. If there is another bull run in the crypto world, in general, DEC can go back up to a penny. And that's a 15x compared to today. Second of all, the devs want a strong DEC because that's to directly boost the value of the rewards given inside the game. Higher value rewards equal greater incentive for new players to play and reinvest. I'm sitting on a ton of DEC and I want to hold on until it's worth more so I can spend it on acquiring cards, not packs, at a time when it is most profitable to do so. Thanks for reading. So first of all, great comment, and I'll send you a little thank you when we're done here. There's a ton of things there that might have changed in the last 3 weeks because you know that the town hall this week, they were saying SPS is going to be in the loot chests, not DEC. So that might undermine the suggestion that they want a strong DEC because they want strong rewards because high rewards equal great incentive for new players. Well, DEC is not even going to be in the loot chest anymore. It's going to be SPS. So that's maybe point number one, and you're probably well aware of that. So I'm just saying it for anybody who is not. Guys, they're getting rid of DEC. And as they get rid of DEC, you know that they've said that the only way to get DEC will be to burn your cards, deleting them forever, or deleting $1 worth of SPS, and that'll equate to 1,000 DEC. And so that is going to anchor DEC to that peg value even more than it currently is because of the algorithmic inflation. So that whole algorithmic inflation thing, which has been the way DEC has been handled and held at its rough peg value, will be thrown out the window. And this whole new system of implementing SPS peg at $1 equals 1,000 is going to be the method that they try and anchor it to 1,000 DEC. Or sorry, 1,000 DEC equaling roughly $1. Now today we're nowhere near that. And so interestingly, I think the economics of this is that your point is probably right. Probably DEC is a good hold because in the short term, we have all these pressures like reduced circulating supply, no more new DEC coming on board, and DEC having a high degree of value like pack purchases right now through Splinterlands or even cards and bid buys on the market. So it's got a lot of utility. It's functional for the game. If you like Splinterlands, you probably need it. And yet there's soon in the very near future, you're not going to be able to get it through packs, through loot chests. And so that is very interesting because it probably means that DEC goes up in value, and it would probably almost double because today the DEC value is, I think, the 0.00057, 0.00058, and this will go if that peg works. If the new SPS peg works the way it's intended, it'll go to 1, which is almost double. So I would argue your point is in some sense true because of what the new system is, but for reasons other than what you've outlined. So I don't actually think they want a strong DEC. I think they actually want a stable DEC, and I think they're going to get it. I think this new system is going to work. It's going to work because, one, there's no more new DEC, yet DEC is desirable. Two, DEC, as it appreciates, will stop appreciating around the peg value. Why? Because if 1,000 DEC reaches up to $2,000 or to $2, for instance, or as you said, to 1 penny, 1,000 DEC equaling, I guess that would be $10. Yeah, if it was to go up to 1,000 DEC, like you're suggesting in your comment, every DEC equaling a penny, that would be $10 worth of DEC for 1,000 DEC. Now, if that was the case, and we know that they're implementing this burn mechanic for SPS, what would that do to SPS prices? Because imagine that if you could burn $1 worth of SPS and get $10 worth of DEC, you would do that until there was no more SPS, and you'd then rush out and buy more SPS and do it again, and rush out and buy more SPS and do it again. So that's going to create tons of new DEC, and that's going to pull the DEC down, I think. And so I think this new mechanic is going to work both in returning it to the peg and then holding it at the peg. And so now, again, I have the hindsight of, I could look at the results that they've recently released in their most recent post. So you didn't have that 3 weeks ago, but these reward updates are significant, and that's where this is all coming from. Adding merits, replacing DEC with SPS. This is from the most recent town hall, and so if you haven't seen this, you should read this. But this is why I'm saying DEC is not a strong long-term hold, but it is a great short-term hold. And so I think you're right, it's going to go up, but I don't think you're right about it going up 15x. And I think you're right, the game is undervalued at 4 million, but I don't think that value is going to find its way to DEC. And then so I feel like I've answered my thoughts on Hilo, but there's some great back and forth here by the community, so I want to read some of it too. Edgar says, to hodl DEC for ROI return of market going up is a good thing, and yes, it will happen, but when? My thinking is to trade in my DEC into SPS and will give me more vouchers that has value in drop also after the SPS airdrop stops. And he says, am I wrong? And he goes, if you look at the strongest currency, I do think DEC might be dropped in the end. This is only speculation, but SPS is here to stay and will give me two things. What you say and what 12 is talking about. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he's saying it's got that. He's imagining SPS even 3 weeks ago when he dropped his comment was going to be the new IT token within Splinterlands, and I think we absolutely know that now. It's going to be the new reward token. It's going to be the new anchor for DEC as a peg and holding it there. So I think you're right, Edgar. And I do think DEC is going to go up, like you alluded to too. But again, when? And maybe in a bull market when prices are going hog wild and, Bitcoin is soaring, maybe DEC does break peg. And at the same time, SPS is breaking peg. And that could create some dynamic that I'm not thinking about. But if SPS is, relatively stable and DEC is flying, we're going to burn SPS and buy more of SPS, causing SPS to spike. And that should mean that they'd both be flying. So this new peg is really dynamic and interesting. And I think it's going to do a good job for the most part of holding DEC to a round peg. And then Play During Gaming said the devs do not want DEC to go above 1 cent peg. Well, it's not 1 cent. It's like 1/10 of a penny, but the peg, because 1,000 DEC is supposed to be $1, which means 10 DEC is one penny. But still, that is the entire reason it is set. Why there is a peg. Not sure what you mean by strong DEC. I think there is wisdom in holding it if it goes up at the end of the airdrop, since at that time the market will be saturated. But what if DEC drops even further and thousands of cards go on the market? Are you not going to buy any cards at all and wait for DEC to go up? This is an interesting point. So Play to Earn Gaming's saying, look, there's an opportunity. If you want to wait for DEC to return to peg or even exceed peg value, you're going to be missing a ton of opportunities. I think this is really true because I've been noticing, especially at the end of the season, you see some of these cards going for really ridiculously cheap. If you come into splinterlands.com and you go ahead and you look at max level cards, And then let's just pick Pellicore Mercenary. Sorry, Pellicore Deceiver. And then you go over here and you go to BCX down. These are all high level BCX cards. This is a 400 max level card for $3. So it's 0.007 cents per BCX, which is like half a penny almost, like a little above half a penny. This is really, really cheap. And yesterday I bought, I want to say it's 5 or 6 of these for $2 each. For $2, I bought, like, that's like below burn value. Because I could burn it right now for 2100 DEC. And if I buy it for 0.005, I'm actually paying 2,000 value for it. $2 is 2,000 DEC. And so the 0.005, which I bought them for, was below peg. And so to play to earn, or to the play to earn gaming's comment, you're going to miss certain opportunities that are in front of you now if you want to sit on your DEC until it appreciates. Now, I do think it's going to appreciate because of the mechanics I described earlier. I think we're going to see a return to peg. But the question is, in the meantime, are you going to miss opportunities? I don't know how long that return to peg is going to take. Great comment. Thanks, Play. Edgar comes back in and he says, Hilo, hi. Like your way of thinking, but the DEC is not going to rise above some limits. I think it will keep going up and down as Hive. Great to use the grind bot between to get the ROI from, but in the long run, I think the SPS has more value. Yeah, I think that's true too. And SPS is definitely going to be burned because the mechanic he talks about SPS maybe being burned. We know that it's going to be burned because of the people are going to continue to need DEC. So they're going to burn SPS in order to get DEC because you can't get it any other way except for burning cards. So yeah. And like a ton of comments here. I wish I saw this one earlier because it would have been great to cover this prior to the new announcements around the rank battle reward changes and how you're going to get paid in SPS and the new peg. Then Hilo comes back and he says to Play to Earn Gaming, the devs do not want to DEC. This is not logical. The peg is floor, not a ceiling. If DEC rises and goes above peg, you know, I think we've kind of addressed the concerns and interests there. Yeah. Yeah, good conversation though. I really enjoyed reading that one. And I see some of what Hilo's saying. I mean, DEC probably does. It is going to go up because right now it's below peg value, and they do want that to be roughly peg. And the new mechanic will erase all the new circulating, all the new DEC coming out of the marketplace, which is a gigantic consideration. And then simultaneously, there's this SPS opportunity where if you need DEC, and you're going to need DEC for a variety of reasons, like upgrading your guild buildings, placing bid buys on the market. I think you're going to need it for some sort of upgrades on land and other things too. You're going to need DEC. You're only going to get it by burning your SPS. That's going to drive SPS prices higher. And so I think we've got more interesting reasons to be holding SPS than we do for DEC. But DEC could double in price practically in the next short number of days. And right after the DEC airdrop, the SPS airdrop ends, I suspect we could go right back to peg. And it might be maybe a little bit longer. Maybe it's when Chaos Legion finishes, because in the meantime, you know, it's going to be in that window, I think, though. And so and that could be a 40% increase to your asset. So I think that's awesome. But I think if you're holding your breath to get to a place where DEC is back to a penny, I don't think that's reasonable any longer for all the reasons I outlined in this video. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Thanks you so much for your time and attention. I am going to send a little thank you to the original commenter. And guys, as always, have an amazing day. God bless.